Good evening, listeners. My name is EveningWhisperTales. Tonight, I'll be telling you some scary horror stories to help you relax and fall asleep. If you enjoy this channel, I'd really appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Now, let's begin our evening together. Story 1. My daughter was standing in the middle of the road. We weren't fighting. That's important. If we'd been arguing about dinner, homework, the radio station, anything, I could have blamed distraction, stress, a bad moment. But the car was quiet in the gentle, drifting way that happens late at night when everyone's tired and nobody has the energy to talk. Rain whispered against the windshield. Headlights carved tunnels through the dark highway. Trees pressed close on both sides, tall and black, their branches knitting together overhead so tightly that the sky barely existed anymore. No streetlights, no houses, just asphalt and forest and the steady rhythm of tires on wet pavement. I glanced in the rear-view mirror. My daughter wasn't in her booster seat. The empty straps dangled. My foot hit the brake so hard, my chest slammed into the seatbelt. The car skidded to a stop, hazard lights blinking orange into the rain. I twisted around. The back seat was empty. No jacket, no backpack, no shoes, just damp fabric where she'd been sitting minutes ago. My pulse exploded in my ears. Sweetheart? Nothing. I yanked the door open and jumped out into the rain. Cold soaked through my shirt instantly. Emma! My voice vanished into the trees. Headlights washed the road in pale yellow, and there she was, standing 10 feet in front of the car, barefoot, in pajamas, rain plastering her hair to her face, facing away from me. Emma! I ran forward and grabbed her shoulders. She was freezing, soaking. Why are you out here? What are you doing? She didn't answer, didn't turn around. Her body was stiff, like she'd locked her joints. Emma! I moved around in front of her. Her eyes were open, wide, staring straight ahead down the road, at nothing, or something I couldn't see. Honey, look at me. She blinked once, slow, wet, then whispered. It stopped pretending. My stomach dropped. What stopped? She pointed down the road, past the reach of the headlights, where darkness swallowed everything. No, the car. My breath caught. What car? The one behind us. I turned. There was nothing. Just rain, empty road, black trees. I looked back at her. She was still pointing. But we're the only ones here. She shook her head. No, you don't hear it. Hear what? The breathing. I listened. Rain, wind, engine ticking as it cooled. And underneath, something else. Low, slow, rhythmic, not mechanical, too wet, too close. I grabbed her and lifted her into my arms. She didn't resist, didn't cling, just kept staring over my shoulder. It doesn't like when you pick me up. I carried her back to the car, heart hammering, every instinct screaming at me to get inside. Lock the doors, drive until there were streetlights again. I set her down in the back seat and fumbled with the straps. They wouldn't click. The buckle slid into place, then popped free. Again. Dad, she whispered. What? It's opening its door. I froze. What door? The one behind us. The rain stopped, all at once, like someone had turned it off. The trees stopped moving. The wind died. Silence crashed down so hard my ears rang. I slowly lifted my head and looked in the rearview mirror. The road behind us had changed. No longer two narrow lanes, no painted lines, just a wide stretch of wet black surface disappearing into fog. And far back, where the darkness thickened, two pale shapes blinked on, headlights, too high off the ground, too far apart. They didn't move, they didn't brighten, They just watched. My daughter whispered, "It's smiling now." I swallowed. "What is?" "The front." The engine started on its own, no key in my hand. The radio burst to life with static. A voice slid through it, not words, breathing, wet, close. My daughter leaned forward until her forehead touched the back of my seat. "Don't drive yet." My hands shook. "Why?" "Because it hasn't stood up." Behind us, something tall unfolded inside those lights, slow, joint by joint, blocking the road, learning how to be vertical. And the last thing my daughter said before the headlights went out was, "Daddy." It figured out which one of us is softer. Story 2. My wife didn't wake up when the alarm went off. The alarm screamed, not the gentle phone chime kind, the old backup one we kept in the bedroom drawer in case the power went out. Shrill, mechanical, impossible to ignore. I jolted upright, heart hammering, fumbling blindly until my hand slapped against plastic and metal. The noise cut off. Darkness rushed back in. No bedside lamp, no glow from the hallway. Storm blackout, maybe. I exhaled and rolled toward my wife. "Hey, Powers!" She didn't move. She usually did. Groaned, shifted, buried her face in the pillow. "Hey," I said again, touching her shoulder. Warm, normal, still. I squeezed lightly. Nothing. A thin prickle crawled up my spine. "Honey." I shook her. Not rough, just enough to wake someone from a deep sleep. She didn't stir. I leaned closer, listening, breathing, slow, too slow, like someone counting between each inhale. The room felt bigger, not physically, acoustically, like sound had more space to travel than it should. The rain outside had stopped, no traffic, no distant hum from neighbors' houses, just that measured breathing beside me. I reached for my phone, dead, battery icon blinking red before going black. "Okay," I muttered, "very funny." I nudged her harder. "Wake up." Her head rolled slightly toward me. Eyes stayed closed, her lips parted. She exhaled, and something answered, not from her, from somewhere else in the room. A second breath, delayed, imitating. I froze, didn't move, didn't even swallow. The second breathing pattern matched hers perfectly. In, pause, out, pause. I whispered, "Did you hear that?" She didn't respond, but the second breathing adjusted quicker, like it was trying to sink. I slid my feet slowly off the bed. The floor was cold enough to bite. I stood, listened. The second breathing came from the far corner of the room, where the closet doors were. They were open an inch. We always kept them shut. I stared. Moonlight leaked through the blinds, thin stripes cutting across the wall and stopping just before the closet. Like the darkness, there was thicker. "Hello," I said quietly. The breathing stopped. My wife inhaled. The other thing didn't. A pause. Then, fabric shifted from inside the closet. Slow. Heavy. Like something leaning forward. I stepped backward, bumping the nightstand. The sound made my wife's breathing hitch. Her chest stuttered, then smoothed out again. Perfect. Too perfect. "Wake up," I whispered urgently. I shook her arm. Nothing. I grabbed her wrist. Pulse. Steady. Human. I almost relaxed. Almost. Then she spoke. Eyes still closed. "Don't turn the light on." My blood went cold. "You're awake." Her mouth didn't move. The words came anyway, from the direction of the closet. "Don't make it bright." I turned my head slowly. The gap between the closet doors had widened, just a little. Something pale pressed against the darkness inside. Not a face. Not yet. more like skin stretched too tight over a shape that hadn't finished deciding what it was. My wife whispered from the bed, "It doesn't like competition." I swallowed. Competition for what? The thing in the closet inhaled, deep, wet, learning. And my wife finally opened her eyes. She stared straight at me, not blinking, for breathing. Story 4. My neighbor started digging at night. The first night I thought it was raccoons, metal scraping dirt, soft thuds, the kind of sound that travels strangely through quiet neighborhoods after midnight. I rolled over, listened. The sound came again, rhythmic, controlled, not frantic. I peered through the blinds. Mrs. Harper's backyard glowed under her porch light. She stood in the middle of it with a shovel, still wearing her robe, hair loose, bare feet in the grass, digging. It was 2:37 a.m. She lifted the shovel slowly, drove it into the earth, pulled up a neat square of sod, set it aside, again and again. I watched for 10 minutes. She never paused, never wiped sweat, never leaned on the handle, just kept carving a rectangle into her lawn. I cracked my window. "Mrs. Harper." She didn't look up. "Everything okay over there?" No answer. I closed the window. The digging continued. The next morning, the hole was gone. Fresh sod, no disturbed dirt, no mound, just perfect lawn. That night, 2:37 a.m., the porch light flicked on. The shovel sang. She dug in the exact same spot. This time I went outside. "Ma'am?" She stopped, slowly, turned. Her face was pale, eyes hollow. "I'm late." "For what?" She looked back at the hole. "They hate when I'm late." My stomach tightened. "Who?" She plunged the shovel again. "They're closer tonight." Story 5. The hotel room with too many doors. The room was cheap. I wasn't expecting luxury, just clean sheets, a working shower, and a lock on the door. I got 2 out of 3. There were 4 doors: bathroom, closet, main entrance, and one more. On the far wall, unlabeled, painted the same color as the wallpaper, no handle, just a faint seam. I tried to ignore it, until it knocked, not loud, 3 soft taps from the other side. I froze, checked the hallway, nobody. Locked the main door, sat on the bed. The knocking came again, closer, like it was right behind the drywall. I leaned in, pressed my ear to it. Silence. Then, breathing, slow, careful, learning the shape of the room. I didn't sleep. By morning, the door was gone. Just smooth wall, but the carpet in front of it was warm. Story 6. My daughter spoke to someone in the car window. We were stuck in traffic, construction, 1 lane, cars idling, heat shimmering off the asphalt. My daughter twisted in her seat. "Dad?" "Yeah." "Why does that man keep getting closer?" I checked mirrors, sedans, pickup, semi, no pedestrians. "What man?" She pointed. "At the one walking between cars." I frowned. "I don't see anyone." "He ducks when you look." My chest tightened. "That's not funny." "He's not joking." She leaned closer to the glass. "He says he likes our car." I locked the doors. "What does he look like?" "Long." "How long?" "Long enough to touch the roof." I swallowed. "He's smiling." She nodded slowly. "Yes." The car behind us honked, not impatient, warning, and something scraped lightly along my trunk. Story 7. The couple who found a house that wasn't on the map. They weren't lost. That was the first argument. The GPS still showed a road. The mileage matched. The gas station they'd passed an hour ago lined up with the timeline in their heads. But the forest had changed. The trees leaned closer now, trunks thick and dark, branches lacing together overhead so tightly the headlights barely reached more than a few yards ahead. The air outside the cracked window smelled damp and metallic, like rain even though the sky was clear. "Maybe there's a shortcut," Lila said. "There wasn't last time." The road curved, kept curving, should have straightened out by now. Then a mailbox, wooden, crooked, painted, white, no numbers, no name, just a red flag hanging limp. Then another and another. A driveway appeared, gravel, freshly raked, leading to a house set back among the trees. Lights on, warm yellow squares in every window. "You want to ask for directions," she said. He slowed. "I don't like that." The driveway gate was open. The gravel didn't crunch when they turned in. That bothered him more than it should have. They parked. The house was bigger up close, too big for how close the trees stood, like it had grown outward until the forest had to accommodate it. A porch light flicked on by itself. "Okay," he muttered. "That's convenient." The front door was already open, just a crack. Warm air drifted out, smelling like baked bread. "Hello," he called. No answer. They stepped inside. The door closed behind them. No slam, no click, just sealed. The hallway stretched longer than the house should allow. Paintings lined the walls, all landscapes, forest, roads, driveways, their driveway, the one they'd just parked in. Lila stopped. "Was that there when we came in?" Behind them. The front door was gone. Story 8. The children who waited at the end of the driveway. The bus never came. It was 6:12 a.m., frost silvering the lawns, breath puffing in clouds as neighbors' porch lights glowed dim yellow. 3 kids stood at the end of the Miller's long driveway. Every morning, same spot, same posture, backpacks on, facing the road. They didn't talk, didn't move, didn't shiver. No one had ever seen them arrive or leave. Mrs. Miller swore they weren't hers, didn't recognize them, didn't know which houses they belonged to. One morning, her husband went out with coffee. "You kids okay?" No answer. He stepped closer. "You waiting for the bus?" The smallest one nodded. "Been waiting long?" "Since before the road." He laughed, nervously. "Before the road?" The taller kid tilted his head. "We stood here first." A wind slid down the street. The bus stop sign creaked. There wasn't supposed to be one there. That morning, there was. Story 9. My friend found a second staircase. The apartment wasn't big. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, galley kitchen, living room. That was it, or so he thought. "I swear this wasn't here," Tom said. He stood in the hallway, staring at a door, plain white, brass knob, no number, no trim, set into the wall between the bathroom and the coat closet. "You remodeled," I said. "No." He twisted the knob. The door opened onto stairs, going down, not steep, carpeted, clean, lit by soft yellow bulbs set into the walls. "I would have noticed this." I stared. "I think so too." Cold air drifted up. Not basement cold, deep earth cold. "You go first," I said. He shook his head. No chance. We stood there, listening. The stairs made a sound, soft, like someone shifting weight, down below. Story 10. My wife started leaving notes I didn't remember, writing. It began with a sticky note on the fridge, bright yellow, my handwriting, blocky letters because I always wrote in caps, buy milk normal. Except I had just come back from the store. I stood there longer than necessary, keys still in my hand, grocery bag dangling from my wrist. We had milk. 2 cartons, one open, one new. I checked the receipt. Milk was on it. I peeled the note off and tossed it. Probably written earlier, forgotten. That night there was another one. On the bathroom mirror, same yellow square, same handwriting. Lock the back door. I frowned. It was already locked. Deadbolt and chain. I tugged both. Solid. I walked into the bedroom. Did you put this up? My wife blinked at me. Put what up? The note. She shook her head. No. That was fine. We both forgot things. We both used sticky notes. I tried to shrug it off. The third one was on my nightstand when I woke up. Don't open the hall closet. That one stayed with me all morning. I carried it to work in my pocket. Read it again at lunch. The letters were shaky, uneven, like I'd written it in a hurry, like my hand had been scared. When I got home, the hall closet door was open, just a crack. We never left it open, ever. It scraped when I pushed it shut. Something inside shifted, not falling, repositioning. That night I couldn't sleep. At 3:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. A photo, no text, just an image. Our hallway, taken from knee height. The closet door visible at the end, open wider now. Timestamp 3:13 a.m. My wife was asleep next to me. I stared at the dark hallway beyond our bedroom door. Then the phone buzzed again. Another photo, closer. Midway down the hall, the closet door yawning. Another buzz, inside the closet, coats hanging, dark, no floor. Visible, something pale behind them. Another buzz, final photo. My wife's face, asleep, taken from my side of the bed. Story 11. The kids found something buried under the playground. They dug it up by accident. That was what the principal told the parents. A broken sprinkler line. Old construction debris, nothing dangerous. Just kids being kids. But the sandbox was gone the next day. Fenced off, yellow tape flapping. Workers in orange vests standing around with their hands in their pockets like they didn't know what to do next. My son wouldn't go near it. He'd loved that playground. Went every afternoon, climbed until his hands blistered. Now he crossed the blacktop to avoid even looking at the fence. Find something gross? I asked. He shook his head. Warm. I stopped walking. What? It was warm. The sand gets warm. He frowned. Not like that. We sat at dinner. He picked at his food. It was breathing. My chest tightened. What was? The bottom. I set my fork down. Tell me. He hesitated. They were digging tunnels, me and Ben and Oliver. Okay. We hit something soft. Like dirt. No. Like arm. My throat went dry. What did it look like? He stared at his plate. Pink. Did it move? He nodded, slow. It twitched. That night the news said nothing. No police cars, no statements. Just a new swing set installed where the sandbox had been. Fresh rubber mat, bright paint. My son refused to go near it. They didn't take it out, he whispered. What? They just flipped it over. Story 12. My brother came home with dirt in his mouth. He knocked at 1:48 a.m. Not hard, not frantic. 3 soft taps. Like he didn't want to wake anyone. I opened the door in pajama pants and a hoodie, annoyed and half asleep. My brother stood on the porch, shoes gone, socks soaked, mud streaked up his jeans, clumped in his hair, in his ears, packed between his fingers. He stared past me. Where have you been? Walking. Where? He blinked slowly. The long way. I pulled him inside. Cold rolled off him like he'd been underground. What happened? He swallowed. Something shifted in his cheeks. I fell. Into what? It. I stared at his mouth. brown at the corners of his lips. You got dirt? He closed his jaw. Hard. Don't. Open your mouth. He shook his head. I'm saving it. My stomach dropped. Saving what? The rest of me. I dragged him into the bathroom, turned the light on. Mud dripped onto the tile. Rinse. He leaned over the sink. Spit. What came out wasn't mud. It was thicker, black, wormed, moving. I gagged. He sagged against the counter. It keeps asking. Asking what? If I'm hollow yet. The bathroom drain gurgled, slow, deep, like something below had heard. Story 13. The woman who couldn't finish her drive. She only needed 10 more minutes. That was what the GPS said. 10 minutes to home. Streetlights, neighbors, safety. But the fog thickened, not mist, walls. Headlights hit white and stopped. She slowed, hazards blinking. The radio dissolved into whispering static. Not voices, shapes of voices. Oh, the road bent. She turned, it bent again. Trees crowded in. Then, taillights, red, floating, a car ahead. Relief flooded her. She followed. The lights slowed. So did she. They blinked. Turn signal. Left. She turned left. The fog swallowed them. Then the road ended. Dirt. Roots. A dead end. She slammed the brakes. Silence. She looked back. The road behind her was gone. Just forest. Her phone lit up. A message. No bars. No service. Why did you follow? She whispered. I didn't have a choice. Another text. You always do, and from somewhere in the fog. Engine noise. Not a car. Breathing. Story 14. The kids followed the ice cream truck. The music started after sunset. That was the first red flag. It wasn't loud, didn't echo. Just that warped, tinny melody drifting between houses like it didn't care about traffic laws or bedtime routines. My daughter froze on the porch. Ice cream? No, I said instantly. It was October, 40 degrees, dark already, no truck lights, just the sound. It came from the cul-de-sac. She craned her neck. Please. I hesitated, bad idea. But the tune was drifting away. We walked to the curb. The street was empty. No headlights. No engine. Just a song floating between houses. It's behind the Johnsons, she said. We followed. Halfway down the block, I smelled something metallic. Like pennies. The tune grew louder. Around the corner, no truck. Just a white freezer chest on wheels. Parked at the end of the used road. No driver, no cab, no headlights. The music came from inside the cooler. That's not... I grabbed her hand. The lid lifted by itself. Inside, rows of wrapped bars. Perfectly aligned. No frost, no ice. Just condensation. A man stepped out of the shadows behind us. Tall, apron, blank face. Pick one. My daughter squeezed my fingers. I don't want it. The freezer slammed shut. The man smiled too wide. Already did. The music restarted, faster, and every house light on the block went dark at once. Story 15. The elevator didn't stop at the floor. It happened on the way home from work. Late, tired. Only 3 people in the elevator. Me, a woman with grocery bags, a man staring at his phone. Doors slid shut. 7th floor. We started down. 6, 5, 4, then 3, 2, 3. The numbers flickered. The car slowed, didn't stop. Just glided past the lobby, past B1, past B2, past blank. A new number appeared. The woman laughed nervously. Basement's deep. The man's phone buzzed. He frowned. There's no signal. The elevator shuddered, stopped. Doors stayed shut. Lights dimmed. The speaker crackled. Please remain inside. I pressed the emergency button. Nothing. The grocery bags leaked something dark onto the floor. The woman stared. That wasn't there. The speaker clicked again. Weight limit exceeded. There were still only 3 of us. Story 16. The family that moved into the empty house. The house at the end of Willow Drive had been empty for 3 years. Everyone on the block knew it. The lawn stayed trimmed, but nobody ever saw who did it. Lights came on sometimes and then didn't for weeks. Packages left on the porch vanished without footprints in the snow. So when a moving truck finally showed up one morning, people stood in their windows pretending not to watch. I was making coffee when I saw them unload furniture. No chatter, no kids running around, no movers joking the way they usually did. Just 3 people carrying things themselves. A man, a woman, and a boy maybe 10 years old. The truck pulled away before noon, even though they hadn't bought much inside. That night, every light in the house came on at once. Every single room from basement windows to attic vents glowed yellow against the dark. My wife noticed too. She stood beside me at the window and whispered, "They're celebrating?" It didn't feel like celebration. It felt like inspection. Over the next week, we barely saw them during the day, but at night they moved from room to room in slow circuits. Lamps clicked on and off in patterns that didn't match human routines. Sometimes the boy stood at the upstairs window long after midnight, staring at the street without moving. On Thursday, I caught him outside while taking out trash. He was at the edge of their yard barefoot, even though the grass was wet with frost. "You okay out here?" I asked. He looked at me like he was doing math in his head. "They don't like when I go inside too long." My stomach tightened. "Who?" "The old rooms." I forced a smile and told him to head back in because it was cold. He nodded but didn't move until I went back inside. 2 nights later, my doorbell rang at 2 a.m. I checked the camera feed on my phone. It was the boy, standing inches from the lens, face pale, eyes glassy. I opened the door a crack. "Everything all right?" "They filled the hallway again," he said. "Filled it with what?" "People." My wife whispered behind me to close the door. I asked where his parents were. "In the walls," he said calmly. "I think they fit better now." I shut the door and locked it, but through the peephole I saw him still standing there, smiling faintly at the wood. Across the street, the house lights went out one by one until only a single window remained, glowing on the 2nd floor. A shadow pressed against the glass from inside, too wide to be a person, dragging itself sideways across the pane. The boy finally stepped back into the darkness and walked home. The next morning, the moving truck was back. Neighbors gathered, pretending to jog or walk dogs while the family loaded furniture into the truck. Same silence, same blank expressions. They didn't look tired. They didn't look frightened. They looked relieved. The truck left by noon. The house stayed empty again. That night the lights came back on. Not all of them, just one. In the basement, and something moved past the window even though nobody lived there anymore. Story 17. The Man Who Came Back Wrong. My brother hadn't called in 6 months, which wasn't unusual. He disappeared sometimes, took road trips without warning, went hiking in places without service, forgot birthdays. That was just who he was. What was unusual was the voicemail. It came at 3:11 a.m. with no missed call notification, just a transcript and an audio file waiting on my phone when I woke up. "I'm home." 2 words, no background noise, no wind, no traffic, just his voice, flat and close to the mic like he'd whispered directly into it. I called back, straight to voicemail, texted him, Nothing. At noon, I was in my kitchen when someone knocked on the front door. 3 soft taps. I froze halfway through pouring coffee. Same rhythm as the voicemail's timestamp. When I opened it, my brother stood on the porch with a duffel bag at his feet. He looked fine at first glance. Thinner maybe, hair longer, dirt under his nails, sunburn on his neck like he'd been somewhere hot. But his eyes didn't do that small tightening thing when he smiled. He hugged me and it felt wrong. Not cold, not stiff, just delayed, like he'd waited to see how much pressure I used before matching it. "You didn't tell me you were coming," I said. He nodded, didn't think. 2? Inside, he set the bag down carefully, lining it up parallel to the wall. 2 precise. He walked through the living room slow, scanning shelves, corners, vents like he was memorizing square footage. "Where have you been?" I asked. He shrugged. "Walking." I laughed. "For 6 months. Long trail." He went into the bathroom and stood staring at the mirror, not adjusting his hair, not checking his face, just watching himself. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded without looking away. "It keeps up now." "What keeps up?" He blinked like he'd forgotten I was there. The reflection. That night he slept on the couch even though the guest room was ready. I woke around 2 a.m. because the house was too quiet in a way that didn't feel like sleep. No fridge hum, no pipes, no distant cars. I found him standing in the hallway facing the coat closet, barefoot, motionless. "You need something," I whispered. "They said not to use doors." He replied. "Who?" "The spaces behind them." I told him to go back to bed. He smiled in the dark. "They're already awake." The next morning, every cabinet in my kitchen was open. Every drawer, every closet door except the one in the hallway where I'd found him. That one was shut tight. So tight the frame around it had bowed outward. I tried to open it and felt pressure on the other side like something leaning back. Then my brother appeared behind me. "Don't!" "What did you put in there?" "Nothing I brought." The house groaned softly like wood settling, except it wasn't settling, it was making room. Story 18, the night the street forgot our house. It started with the mail. I only noticed because the mailbox was empty. That shouldn't have been strange. Sometimes it was. Bills went digital, packages got delayed, junk mail slowed down. But by Thursday, it was still empty. No envelopes, no flyers, no grocery store coupons, just bare metal and dust. Across the street, Mrs. Klein was watering her lawn. "Post office skipping us or something," I called. She squinted at my house. "Your mailbox." "Yeah." She tilted her head. "I don't think you have one." I laughed. "Very funny." "I'm serious." I walked out to the curb and pointed. "That." She frowned. "That's a streetlight pole." My stomach tightened. I looked again. The metal post was there. The box was not. No hinge, no red flag, no numbers, just a bare pole sunk into concrete. I stared at it. "It was there yesterday." She shrugged. "Maybe you moved it." I hadn't. I went back inside and checked the door. No mail slot, no package. Fine. Weird. Later that afternoon, my grocery delivery texted me that they couldn't find my address. Driver notes, house not present. I called customer service. They asked me to confirm the street name, then the number. Then, "Sir, that address doesn't appear in our system." I stood in my kitchen staring out the window at my neighbor's place. Same houses, same lawns, same cars, just mine, right in the middle. I hung up and stepped outside, walked to the sidewalk, looked back. The house felt thinner, like the front porch didn't extend quite as far as it should, like the shadow under the eaves wasn't deep enough. I crossed the street and turned around again. My front door was still there, my windows, but the siding looked newer than it had yesterday. Blank, no scuffs, no chipped paint, like a model home version of itself. That night, my porch light didn't turn on. The switch inside clicked. Nothing happened. Across the street, lights glowed warm. Mine stayed dark. My wife tried the kitchen. Dead. Living room. Dead. Breaker, she muttered. I checked. Everything was on. No trip switches. The house simply wasn't taking electricity. At 11 p.m., a car slowed in front of our place, then kept going. Another did the same, then another. Headlights washed over our lawn and slid off like they couldn't catch on anything solid. I stepped onto the porch. A man walking his dog paused across the street. "Hey," I called, "can you see me?" He stared directly at me, then down at the dog, then back at the sidewalk, and kept walking. My phone buzzed. No service bars. A message anyway. "You're not listed anymore." "What does that mean?" I whispered. Another message. "Structures need records," I typed back. "Who is this?" Instant response. The street behind me, the house made a noise. Not a creak, not settling. A long, slow inhale through the walls. My wife grabbed my arm. Did the hallway just get longer? I turned. The corridor stretched past the bathroom, past the coat closet, past where the back door should have been, into shadow. And something moved inside it, adjusting, like a building flexing new joints. Story 19. My wife said someone was living in the attic. The attic had always been empty. That was one of the reasons we liked the house when we bought it. No crawl spaces full of junk from previous owners. No weird locked rooms. No leftover furniture shoved into corners. Just insulation, rafters, and a few cardboard boxes we stored Christmas lights in once a year. So when my wife asked me if I'd been upstairs in the middle of the night, I laughed. "No," I said, pouring coffee. "Why?" She stood at the sink, staring into her mug. "I heard walking." "You mean squirrels?" "In the hallway." I paused. "We don't have an upstairs hallway." "I know." She didn't say anything else after that, which made it worse. She kept glancing toward the ceiling like she was listening for something to line up with what she remembered. That afternoon, I climbed the fold-down ladder in the ceiling to check. Dust puffed into my face when I pushed the panel open. The attic smelled, dry and stale, like wood that had forgotten rain existed. Sunlight leaked through the vents along the roofline, illuminating rows of beams and insulation rolls. Nothing else. No footprints, no dragged boxes, no nesting animals, just our stuff. I came down and told her everything looked fine. She nodded but didn't look relieved. That night I woke up because the house made a sound it wasn't supposed to make. Not a creak or a pipe knock, but a slow scrape that traveled across the ceiling above our bedroom, like someone dragging a heavy rug. I held my breath. The scrape stopped, then started again, closer to the attic hatch. My wife whispered, "There, you hear that too." It moved. I got out of bed and stood in the dark, staring at the faint outline of the hatch panel in the ceiling above the hallway. It didn't open, didn't shift. The sound faded. I slept badly after that. The next morning, the ladder was down, just hanging into the hallway like someone had climbed halfway and changed their mind. I stood under it for a long time before calling up. "Hello?" My voice echoed into insulation. Nothing answered. I pushed the ladder back up. It resisted for a second, then folded close with a soft click. I went to work uneasy and came home to my wife sitting on the couch with all the lights on. "It smells like dirt," she said. The house didn't usually smell like anything. I noticed it then too, damp soil, faint but unmistakable, drifting through the air vents. That night the scraping came back, louder, slower, heavier. It didn't roam this time. It stayed above the hatch and paced in short lines like something testing how much room it had. My wife cried quietly into her pillow. I grabbed a flashlight and climbed. The attic looked wrong, not rearranged, stretched. The rafters seemed farther apart than they should have been. The insulation pushed into neat ridges along the edges as if something had been clearing space in the middle. Footprints dented the dust, bare, human-shaped, too long. They led toward the far end where the roof dipped low. I followed. The smell was stronger there. Wet earth, rot. At the very edge where the beams disappeared into shadow, I found a blanket. Ours. The one that used to be on the guest bed, folded. Beside it sat a mug. My mug. Empty, still warm. I backed out so fast I scraped my elbow on a nail. That night we slept downstairs. At 2:19 a.m., footsteps crossed the ceiling anyway, not above us, above the kitchen, then the living room, then the hallway, slow, bare, learning the layout. At 2:41, the attic hatch creaked. At 2:42, the hallway carpet shifted. At 2:43, my wife squeezed my hand so hard it hurt and whispered, "It's coming down to see where we keep things." I stared at the dark hallway, waiting for the ladder to unfold. It didn't. Something heavier dropped instead, and the ceiling bowed, just slightly, like someone had pressed their face against it from the wrong side. Story 20. The man who knocked on our window. Every night. The first time it happened, I assumed it was a branch. We'd had heavy wind all afternoon, the kind that strips leaves and sends loose things skittering across sidewalks. So when something tapped softly against the bedroom window around midnight, I barely reacted. Tap, 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 too even. I rolled over and stared at the ceiling, waiting for the sound to fade. It didn't. Tap, tap, tap. My wife stirred beside me. "You hear that? Probably the tree out front. There isn't one that close." The tapping stopped. Silence settled. I exhaled, then tap, right next to my ear, on the glass. I sat up. The curtains hung closed. The streetlight outside usually leaked through the edges, but tonight the fabric looked darker than it should have, like something blocked the glow. I slid out of bed and crept closer. Tap. From the shoulder height, someone was standing there. I pulled the curtain back an inch. There was a man on the lawn, just beyond the window, facing the house, motionless, hands folded in front of him. I froze. He wasn't looking at the window. He was looking up, at the second floor, at our room. I dropped the curtain. "There's someone outside," my wife whispered. "Call the police." I grabbed my phone. No service. Wi-Fi gone. The house felt hollow again, like sound couldn't find walls to land on. Tap, tap, tap. Closer now. Lower, like he'd crouched. I peeked again. He was nearer, at the edge of the flower bed, shoes off, feet pale against wet grass. His face was tilted upward at an angle that hurt to look at, neck craned too far back. "Go away," I shouted through the glass. He didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. My wife whispered, "What does he want?" Tap, tap, tap. The sound came from the downstairs window now. He was moving without crossing the lawn, just appearing closer. I ran to the stairs. The front door was locked, the back door too. The tapping started in the kitchen, then the dining room, then the hallway. like he was testing the whole house at once. We stood in the middle of the living room surrounded by invisible knocks. Then it stopped, all at once. I waited 30 seconds, a minute, two, nothing. I whispered, maybe he left. From directly above us, on the ceiling, came 3 soft taps. Slow, deliberate, right over our heads. My wife whimpered, "He's inside." I stared at the attic hatch and heard footsteps walking across it, bare, wet, tracking where we stood. Story 21, the family that was already in our house. We didn't think anyone had been inside. There were no broken locks, no forced windows, no muddy footprints on the carpet, or scuffed marks on the doors. The alarm hadn't gone off. The cameras didn't record anything. Strange. That was the worst part. It meant whatever was happening didn't care about being noticed. It started with small things going missing. A mug I used every morning. One shoe from a pair I'd left by the door. My wife's scarf vanishing from the coat rack. At first we blamed each other, then ourselves, then exhaustion, until the photos started changing. We kept framed pictures lining the hallway wall, snapshots from vacations, birthdays, old family gatherings. One evening, my wife stopped in front of them and just stood there, staring. "Was this here yesterday?" I followed her gaze. A new photo had appeared between 2 older ones, a black and white, grainy, a family standing on our front porch. Man, woman, 2 children, all of them staring at the camera, all of them standing exactly where we'd stood when we bought the house. "I've never seen that," I said. My wife shook her head. "That's our porch." The next morning, another one had joined. Same family, in the living room, standing near the couch, our couch. We pulled the frames down, checked the backs, no dust, no age, printed on modern paper. That night we heard voices downstairs, not shouting, not whispering, conversation, soft overlapping murmurs like a TV left on in another room. I crept down with a baseball bat. Every light was off, the kitchen empty, the living room empty, but the couch cushions were warm, indents slowly fading. Someone had just stood up. More photos appeared, kitchen, hallway, guest room, closer to our bedroom. Then we found a 3rd toothbrush in the cup, wet, used. My wife cried. We packed bags, planned to leave. At 3 a.m. the hallway filled with footsteps, not running, walking, measured. 4 sets, up and down, back and forth, like people checking doors, testing locks, learning. I cracked the bedroom door and saw shadows pass beneath it. 2 tall, 2 small, yet all wrong in their proportions. The last thing I saw before the knob turned was a new photo sliding under the door. It showed us asleep, from inside the room, and behind us in the mirror. A family smiling, waiting for the house to decide which of us it belonged to. Story 22, the phone that started recording on its own. I didn't realize anything was wrong at first. That's the part that still bothers me. The way it slipped into my life like something ordinary, harmless, something I would have ignored forever if it hadn't gotten greedy. My phone was on the kitchen counter while I cooked dinner. Music playing through a Bluetooth speaker, steam rising from a pot of pasta. The whole place smelled like garlic and butter and normalcy. Then my phone chimed. Not a text, not a call. The camera shutter sound. I frowned and wiped my hands on a towel before picking it up. No notifications, no open apps, just my lock screen. I unlocked it. Gallery. A new video sat at the top of the list. Time stamped 10 seconds ago. I tapped it. It was my kitchen, from above the cabinets, angled downward, wide enough to capture the stove, the sink, the counter where I stood stirring noodles. I was in the frame, moving, alive, unaware. My stomach tightened. I slowly turned in a circle. There was nothing above the cabinets, no shelves, no ladders, no second-story overlook, just drywall and crown molding. I deleted the video, told myself it was a glitch. That night, while brushing my teeth, I heard the shutter sound again, from the bedroom. I walked down the hall and opened the door. My phone lay on the nightstand, dark. I unlocked it with shaking fingers. Another video, this time from inside the closet. Clothes hung on either side of the frame, swaying slightly as if someone had just pushed them apart. The camera stared straight at my bed, at the place where I would sleep in 10 minutes. I didn't delete that one. I locked the phone and backed out of the room. Checked every closet, every shower curtain, every door. Nothing. No hidden phones, no people, no vents big enough for someone to crawl through. I slept on the couch. At 2:41 a.m., the shutter sound came from the coffee table in front of me. I didn't touch the phone. I waited until the screen lit up by itself. Another video, recorded from the hallway ceiling. A slow pan, my bedroom door, the bathroom, the attic hatch. Then the camera tilted, focused on me, lying on the couch pretending to sleep. My breathing in the audio track wasn't mine. Too slow, too wet. I muted it. That was a mistake. The next morning, my front-facing camera was cracked. A single long fracture down the center, like something had pressed too hard from the wrong side. Every video from before yesterday was gone. Just the new ones, dozens, short clips, different rooms, different angles, always from high places, corners, door frames, ceiling vents. I tried turning the phone off. It powered back on. I removed the SIM card. Videos kept appearing. I left it in the car while I went grocery shopping. When I came back, there was a new clip from the back seat, pointed at my headrest, at the space where my neck would be when I drove. I threw the phone into a trash can behind the store, drove home shaking. 3 hours later, my tablet buzzed. New device notification. Cloud sync complete. Every video had transferred, including a new one, recorded 5 minutes ago. From inside my house, from the corner of the living room ceiling, showing my front door, unlocking from the inside, and me, walking in, holding grocery bags, filmed by something that had arrived before I did. Story 23. The man who waited in my backyard. I noticed him because my dog wouldn't stop staring at the fence. She was a lazy old lab who only barked at mail trucks and squirrels that got too confident. That night she stood at the sliding glass door with her hackles raised, body stiff, nose pressed to the glass like she could smell something I couldn't. "Relax," I muttered, half asleep on the couch. She didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even wag her tail when I said her name. She just watched the dark. I pulled the curtain back a few inches. The yard was empty, patio furniture stacked, grass silver in moonlight, fence line shadowed by trees, no movement. My dog growled anyway, low, deep, not loud, warning. I let the curtain fall. 10 minutes later she was still there. Same spot, same posture, staring. I checked again, still nothing. That's when I noticed the footprints, bare, pressed into the damp soil along the far edge of the yard, parallel to the fence, like someone had been standing there a long time, shifting weight from foot to foot. My stomach tightened. I scanned the darkness. "Hello?" Nothing answered. I went back inside and locked the door, watched from the window. Minutes passed. Then, a shape stepped forward from between two trees, tall, too thin, standing just beyond the reach of the porch light. It didn't move closer, didn't wave, didn't crouch, just stood there, watching the house. My dog whimpered. I grabbed my phone, camera, zoom. The image blurred, auto-focused, blurred again. Every time it sharpened, the man wasn't where he should have been, like the camera couldn't agree with my eyes. I lowered the phone. He was closer, at the edge of the lawn now. I hadn't seen him walk. I shut the curtain, heart pounding, turned off the lights, waited. The house felt too quiet. No fridge hum, no AC, no distant traffic. Then, 3 slow knocks from the glass, right behind me. I spun around. The sliding door was inches from my face. Outside, nothing, no man, no reflection, just the yard, empty. My phone buzzed, a new message, no sender. He doesn't like being filmed. I backed away. Another message, he likes. When you watch instead, from the kitchen window came a soft tap. Then from the dining room, then the bathroom, different sides of the house. Same rhythm, testing, mapping. My dog barked once and bolted down the hall. I heard the laundry room door slam. Then, silence. I whispered her name, no response. The tapping stopped. I stood, frozen, listening, waiting, from somewhere very close behind me. A voice whispered my dog's name, in my own voice. Story 24, the basement door. That opened after we bricked it shut. When we bought the house, the realtor was very clear that there was no basement. Crawl space, yes. Utility closet, sure, but not a real basement. No finished rooms underground. No storage area, no stairs. So when my wife found a door behind the washer, I told her she was wrong. We'd lived there 2 years. I'd installed the washer myself. I would have noticed a door. It's right there, she insisted, tugging at my sleeve and leading me into the laundry room. Behind the stacked units, half hidden by pipes and conduit, was a thin rectangle in the wall, painted the same off-white as everything else. No trim, no knob, just a faint outline in the drywall and a seam running down the middle. That's, new, I admitted. We pulled the machines aside. Up close, it was stranger. The door wasn't flush. It bowed inward slightly, like something on the other side leaned against it. Maybe an old coal chute, I said, though I'd never seen one indoors. I pressed my ear to it. Nothing, no hollow echo, no muffled space behind, just solid. We left it alone for a week. Then it opened, not wide, just a crack, enough to let cold air spill into the laundry room. The smell came with it, wet stone, rust, old water. I pushed it shut. It resisted for half a second before sealing again with a soft click. We jammed a chair against it. That night the chair tipped over. In the morning, the door stood open 3 inches, darkness beyond. Not the kind you get when lights are off. The kind that looks thick, textured. We called a contractor. He stared at it longer than necessary. That's not in your plans. I know. He knocked on it. The sound was wrong. Too deep, like knocking on the side of a swimming pool. I wouldn't open that, he said. We didn't. We boarded it up instead. 2x4s bolted into studs, plywood over the surface, drywall patched, painted, perfect. For 3 days, nothing happened. On the 4th morning, the paint had cracked, hairline fractures radiating outward. Something pushed from behind. The boards bowed. We brought in a mason. He bricked it. Mortar, real stone, sealed flush with the wall. He didn't joke while he worked, didn't ask what was behind it, didn't stay long after finishing. That night, thudding, deep, slow, from inside the wall, not banging, testing, feeling. Each impact made dust shake loose from the ceiling, then scratching, not fingernails, too wide, dragged, learning the surface. By morning, there was a wet patch spreading across the bricks, dark, smelling of earth. At the center, a handprint, pressed from the inside. 5 long fingers, too many joints. We packed bags, booked a hotel. When we pulled out of the driveway, my phone buzzed. A security alert. Motion detected in the laundry room. The camera feed opened. The brick wall was gone. In its place, the door, wide open, and something tall stood in the doorway, tilting its head like it was deciding whether to follow. Story 25. The reflection that didn't follow me home. It happened after a 12-hour shift, the kind where your brain turns soft and the world feels slightly unreal, even before anything strange has a chance to happen. I'd stayed late cleaning equipment at the lab, and by the time I parked in my apartment garage, the concrete levels were nearly empty. The overhead, fluorescence buzzing and flickering in tired yellow streaks. I stepped out of the car and caught my reflection in the side mirror. Nothing odd. Tired eyes, messy hair, wrinkles in my shirt. I grabbed my bag and walked toward the elevator. The mirror on the wall near the doors reflected me as I passed. Again, normal. I rode up to my floor, got out, and didn't see myself. The hallway mirror at the elevator bank was blank. Not dark, not covered, just not reflecting anything where I stood. The carpet behind me, the exit sign, the fire extinguisher, no me. I waved, nothing. I stepped sideways, still nothing. My stomach clenched. I leaned forward. My face should have filled the glass. It didn't. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera. Front facing, there I was. I exhaled shakily. Probably some coding, lighting, angle. I walked down the hall toward my apartment. The mirror at the stairwell reflected me again. I'm normal. The one by the vending machine did too. Relief crept in. When I got home, I washed my hands and looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. Still fine. Went to bed. The next morning, I brushed my teeth and noticed something tiny. My reflection blinked a fraction of a second after I did. Not enough that I could swear to it. Just enough that my stomach tightened. I spent the day checking windows, screens, spoons, anything shiny. Everything matched. Until that night. I walked past the bathroom and caught myself in the mirror over the sink. The reflection was still standing there, staring forward. I had already stepped away. I froze, slowly leaned back. The reflection snapped into place, copied me, too fast, like it had rehearsed. I stood there for 10 minutes, didn't blink, didn't move. Sweat gathered at my hairline. Finally, I turned off the light. The room went dark. When I flicked it back on, the reflection was closer to the glass than I was, nose nearly touching, smiling. I ran, locked myself in the bedroom, covered the bathroom mirror with a towel. In the morning, the towel was folded neatly on the counter. The mirror was clean, spotless, and my reflection was already waiting for me, standing in the doorway behind my shoulder.